I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
When you're spending thousands of dollars to go on a trip of a lifetime, and for a lot of people, like, this is a one-time thing. This is a bucket list experience, right? You don't necessarily want to spend your money and just roll the dice.
That was Scott Brills, today's guest, and I couldn't agree more. You don't want to roll the dice when you're planning an expensive experience like an African safari, and that's why I wanted to bring Scott on. He's a true expert, a longtime nomad, and co-founder of Pamoja Safaris. He's going to discuss all the details surrounding how to plan an African safari. So whether you've been on safari before or perhaps only have dreamt of going on safari, you're not going to want to miss this episode. Scott provides insider advice on what to expect when booking a safari, when and where to go, the key elements of having a great safari experience, and so much more. We also get into his journey, how he turned his side hustle into a full-time business, how he managed to build his life around travel, tips for embracing a lifestyle that deviates from the norm, the magical moment that Scott entered into a business partnership with his safari company, and why it's important to seize the moment when you find your calling, and plenty more. Of course, you're going to get a full breakdown of the best destinations in Africa to have a one-of-a-kind wildlife and cultural experience. Stay tuned for all of that. Plus, I'll share my bonus Big Five experience. An easy way to go on safari, but one of the best animal experiences I've ever had, even though it was short. You'll hear that in this show. And, of course, a shout out to a listener who's kickstarting a life of travel, providing some inspiration for me and for everybody listening out there. Share that story as well. And a lot more happening right now in this episode. You're here. Let's do it. Buckle up. Strap in. Thanks for being here. And welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey there, it's Jason with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. I've never been on an African safari, and that's why this is a show that was a long time coming for me to record, because I wanted to learn more about those destinations, kind of get my head around how would you start diving into planning an experience like this, of this magnitude, getting the most out of it, for not only the money you spend, but for the investment in the time of the experience of going on a safari in Africa. And I could think of no better person to bring on than my friend Scott Brills, because he's one of those guys that isn't just afraid to share everything about what he's doing. Of course, he has a company that runs safaris in Africa and takes people on these incredible experiences, but he's not afraid to just kind of, what did they say, open the kimono or drop the veil, whatever terminology you want to use, and just let us in and share how they plan things, how he sees things, and what that might mean to the independent traveler, whether you're going with his company or not. The goal of the episode is to just give you a lot of value around the African safari experience to help you plan your first or next one. And of course, as we always do here on the Zero Travel podcast, we dig into the story behind Scott's journey and how he ended up running a safari company and some of the other things he's done along the way, his experience being an early nomad in the early 2000s, how he has actually grown this business on referrals alone without spending any money on marketing, and just a whole bunch of other stuff that's sort of related to the main theme of this show. And stick around on the back end. I am going to share a little bit about one of my favorite bonus Big Five, I call it, animal experiences. Wasn't on safari, but this is like maybe it's a little hack. Yeah, I'm sure one that you're familiar with, but a way to get the safari experience without going too far. And of course, we'll leave you with a quote on the back end. We're going to dive into the interview in a moment. I do want to give a quick shout out to Christopher, somebody in this listening community. Hey, Chris. He wrote me an email from Toronto, Canada. Said, hey, Jason, hope all is well. Just wanted to thank you for inspiring me to take 5 weeks off work and travel Europe with my girlfriend. I know if not for the show and its inspiring guests that I wouldn't have made the leap and done what I needed. Can't help but think this could be the start of a life filled with more travel. Thanks again, and keep up inspiring us all to get more travel in our lives. Chris from Toronto. Thank you, Chris, very much for the kind words. More importantly, congratulations. You know, this is how it can start for a lot of us. You see what he said there? He's just taking 5 weeks off work to travel Europe with his girlfriend. A simple choice. He got the time. He took it, and he didn't have to quit his job or like sell everything he owned and, live in his car to save his money or whatever. Everybody has their own different circumstances for kickstarting a life filled with more travel or just adding more travel into your life this year. And everybody has their own version of what a small step might be. In Chris's case, it was being able to take off work for 5 weeks. Maybe some of us can only do that for a week or for a road trip weekend or whatever. But it's that intentionality behind just adding more travel into our lives and then making a choice to get out and do it. Again, it doesn't mean you have to do some of the big things that you hear on this show. I just wanted to remind everybody of that. And I think this ties in nicely with Scott's story because you can hear this was a journey for him. And this life he built for himself based around his love of travel, it grew over time. And when he started out, he didn't know he was going to be running safaris in Africa, but that's how these things go. When you start building a life around travel or something else you love, you never know where it's going to take you. And I think Scott's story is a good illustration of how things can go or how they went for him. And of course, we can all learn from each other's experiences. So I hope you enjoy hearing Scott's experience. Stick around on the back end. Again, I'll share a little bit about one of my favorite animal encounters that I had recently, and leave you with a nice quote to send you off on your way. So I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for listening. My guest today lives his life at the intersection of three things he loves: entrepreneurship, travel, and philanthropy. And I think his life and work demonstrates that, as you'll hear today. His company, Pamoja Safaris, takes guests on African wildlife safaris in Tanzania. His charity projects have included driving an old car from London to Mongolia to raise money to build a kindergarten, spending months heading from the UK to South Africa in a pair of cars dressed up like sneakers to raise money for schools and orphanages, and spending weeks at a time piloting an auto rickshaw, a total of 11,000 miles through India, while raising money to support a variety of causes throughout the country. I'm going to link to his various companies here, but you can learn more at scottbrills.com and pamojasafaris.com. Scott, I've been waiting for a long time to say this. Welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate being here. I know it's we've known each other for a while. Less time IRL, but yeah, happy to be on and to be able to do this. Even though I'm here in Oxford, you're in Norway. We're pretty close. We're closer than usual.
Yeah, Oxford, England is where you
Oxford,
are.
England.
Yes. So I mean, it's a shame we weren't able to do this in person, but I think every time. So I think I first met you in Austin, Texas. We hung out there and we had tacos, and that was some years ago. I think
that was
pre-pandemic.
Like 2016, maybe 17, something like that.
Yeah, and then we did the camp thing, and then we were just recently both in Portland, Oregon for a conference. And I guess we could have done that here, but like, I don't know, you're at a conference, there's like all kinds of things going
There was a
on.
lot going on. There's a ton
Yes.
going on. There wasn't a lot of downtime for that, and it's definitely one of those things where like you're like, yeah, I'll schedule it, we'll put it on the calendar, but stuff might come up, and I'm sure it would have.
Yeah, and now you're on vacation with your dad, and I'm totally stealing your time. I needed to steal your time for the listeners, and you're generous enough to give it, because I think going on safari in Africa is on most people's travel wish list. And some
Seems
of
to
you
be.
that are listening maybe have already done it, but today you're going to talk about how we can plan an unforgettable safari experience without going broke, and some of the benefits of going on safari and things like that. I have a lot of questions around that. Hopefully people that have already been on safari, they're going to get some value out of this interview in different ways. So first of all, congratulations on 10 years with the company.
Thank you. Yeah, we're on going on year 11 now. So we formed in late 2010, early 2011. Didn't have our first guest, pay us money until 2012. So yeah. I'd say 10 years right now, and heading into 11.
Yeah. I mean, how does that feel? That's quite a milestone.
Time has flown by. It was kind of a side project for the first few years. I thought it would just be a good conversation starter to say the safari company in Africa, and which it is. But a few years in, decided to kind of make it more of a priority, and get out of what I was already doing, and make that more of a thing. And it was the right choice. Yeah. And then from there, I've kind of used it as a springboard to other travel and tourism type adventures.
Well, I mean, this is one thing I want to talk about. You've built your life around travel, which is a big theme in this podcast here. And just from a bit of the research I've done about you, it seems that a lot of this, well, I'll read a quote from your website. You said, things really started to change when I was accepted into a year-long work-study program in Japan right out of high school. I proceeded to spend my first year of university overseas, learning Japanese and living for the first time on my own, thousands of miles away from home, and loved every minute of it. So talk about that experience in your life. It seems to me that was sort of the gateway to your life of travel in many ways.
Oh yeah, that along with a trip I did in 2013, 19. Let's see. Well, I was 13 years old. So a while before that, I went as a student ambassador to China for 3 weeks. Traveled all around China with a few chaperones and a bunch of other kids my age, and really loved it. And then after that, like that kind of started it. But then like when you're 13, you don't really have a lot of ability to just go off and travel or do your own thing. Of course, you got to finish school, or you don't have to, but you should finish schooling and get some money and get a job and stuff like that. So I was lucky enough to then, really the first chance I got, which was freshman year in university, I was able to go over to Japan on a work study program that was recommended to me by my Japanese teacher in high school. Again, luckily enough to have a Japanese program in my high school, which isn't necessarily the norm in a lot of the U.S. or schools anywhere. And so she recommended me. I was the only senior in a class full of basically freshmen, because it was Japanese 1. And I tried 2 years of Spanish, didn't really click with me, wasn't super interested in learning it. I was learning it because you have to take 2 years of language, at least in my district. And so I did it because I thought it was the easiest. But then I found out that if you really want to learn it, then it's a lot easier, instead of being forced to learn it. So I went over to Japan for 9 months. Before that, I took 3 months of classes kind of leading into it. This is through Michigan State University, Lansing Community College, which is right in the center of Michigan in the U.S. And they've been doing the program for 20 years already, since 1982. And basically they send a group of about 16 students over there. Most of them are older than me. I was 18 when I went over there. Most of the other people were 21, 22, right at the end of their college, university days. So I was the second youngest just by a few months. And we went over there and we worked as waiters on a replica Mississippi steam wheeler ship in the largest lake in Japan called Shiga. Biwako in Shiga Prefecture, which is sister states or sister prefecture states. Prefecture is kind of their word for a state in Japan. So we were sister states, more or less, with Michigan, which is where I'm from. So they've been doing this for years and years, sending students over there, and then students from Japan would come over to the U.S. It was kind of this partnership, and yeah, we worked 3 or 4 days a week. We went to school, generally 3 days a week in the same building that we were living. It was like a 5 minute walk to the dock where the boat was, and even though all of us complained a lot about any number of things, I can guarantee that like now, if you go back to any of the people I studied with there for 9 months, they're like, oh yeah, those are the glory days. That was so good. We didn't have to worry about anything. All of our rent was paid for. A lot of our meals were taken care of. Transport around the country, cultural visits and stuff like that. And we also got a stipend. So like we would work and, granted, it probably wasn't a ton of money. I remember it being something like $1,200 US a month. But that $1,200 US a month went into groceries, eating out, and drinking, basically. And then, like, every so often, you'd have a day or two every week to hang around Japan. And I threw myself into it. I went out and I made like pen pals before I went there. And I did everything I could with every minute of my time. Like, I was not sitting around doing nothing much of the time. So, yeah, it completely changed my life, changed my I was like pretty introverted, like a lot of books and video games before that. And then I realized that there's real life out there, and I decided to embrace it with both arms. And yeah, even my palate changed. I was like a very picky eater, growing up on traditional like Midwestern white food, like casseroles, chicken nuggets, French fries, and stuff like that. It was like to the point where pepperoni on pizza was too spicy for me, like spicy. And then I went over there, and like one funny thing is that, like a funny experience is I had kimchi jjigae for the first time, which is Korean food at a Korean restaurant in Japan operated by some Korean people that live there. And I was like, wow, this burns, but it tastes so good. And I just like kept eating it. And I have to like wait a few minutes between bites because I was so unused to anything spicy. And then like I came back and I was eating like mushrooms and peppers and onions and spicy food and kimchi. And my mom's like, what have you done with my son? Like you're completely different. So yeah, super transformative. And after that, I was like, wow, like even though I knew I had to graduate university, or I wanted to, definitely my parents expected that of me. I was like, okay, I want to do this as quick as possible, and then like continue, like either go back to Japan, which was the plan for a long time, and teach English, like a lot of my friends ended up doing, or just something that wouldn't involve necessarily sitting in an office from 9 to 5, which was kind of my plan before that. Wanted to get like video game design or 3D art and animation, something like that. I was very, very much into computers, into art, into video games. And so I kind of wanted to like do something like that until I went to Japan. And then, yeah, everything was changed.
It's sort of the default setting for our generation coming up then, right? If you're from the suburbs and you're growing up, it's like you're supposed to get an office job. Like it's almost like you need to just do something totally radical to shake it up, to see that there's other ways to live if you're not exposed to that in some way growing up, I feel. What did the China trip do to your 13-year-old brain?
I felt like I was just telling a few people on this trip I'm currently on. I'm on a holiday, like a group adventure with my dad. Not leading it. It's another company, mainly for older retirees, American retirees, to go on like small group trips around the world. And there's some people were asking me about like how I got into travel and stuff. I mentioned that, and I said, yeah, I felt like I was decently mature for a 13-year-old. Yeah, I remember like other kids at certain points like having like food fights and stuff in the restaurants we were in, and just feeling like embarrassed to be there. Um, but I went over there and I was like a sponge. Like before I went, I threw myself into this like studying nonstop, watching like every movie about China, reading everything about China, buying all the books, going to the library about it. Like I was super into just prepping for it. So like by the time I got over there, like I kind of knew at least a backstory about everything that we went to see or do. But yeah, going over there, I had such a great time seeing the things in real life that I had learned about, meeting the people who were super friendly, and having that first like time away from home for an extended period, which was really just like a very interesting experience when you're with a group of, I think it was like 20, 25, 13-year-olds. maybe one or two from my school and the rest just from other places around the area. It's called People to People Student Ambassador Program. I think it still operates today. It was started way back many decades ago, and it's been kind of a driving force between people to people kind of experiences, pulling countries together through their youth and sending people on adventures like that. Just all around the world. My sister went to one by the same organization in Australia a few years later, and she had a really good time as well.
Yeah, I just love hearing the backstory because, it's one thing to, I mean, you could go on a trip and it just depends on the person, right? You could go on a trip like that and say, well, that was just such an incredible experience, and, kind of take it for what it is. And then, for some people, and it sounds like that was the case for you, it's just kind of like, this travel thing is so incredible. I want this to be my life in many ways,
Yeah, and no way did I think it would be, all the way to this point. I'm still traveling a lot, and I made it my career. No way. I remember being like 20, just still finishing up university and after Japan, and thinking like, I think I'm gonna get in, do web development on the side, which was what I was doing. I had my own company at that point, and
that was with your brother, right?
That was later on. So I did my first company on my own, and then I partnered with my brother later on for a few years. That company still operates, but I just do projects for friends. But yeah, like I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to do this for like 5 years, and 25, I'm probably like settle down, get a job, like a real job, quote unquote, and then. I remember like then turning 25, and I'm like, I think I can still got like 5 years in me. And I'll do this till like 30, and like just keep pushing it back until I realized like it was silly setting arbitrary like stop times to things, like you just kind of go with the flow, and if it no longer serves you, then you change it up a bit.
I feel like I had a bit of that internal battle as well, because I had some outside feedback when I was nomadic, kind of like, when are you going to settle down and this sort of
Oh
thing.
God, all the time. When are you going to settle down? Especially like on a trip like this with a bunch of retirees. Do it while you're young.
Yeah.
And like
Right.
When are you going to settle down? Or one of the two, or maybe both. All the time.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop. Now, back to the show. I like the term you used, arbitrary stop times, because that is, I guess we could say they're arbitrary, but also maybe some of them are culturally influenced or influenced from society, right? It's like, or like just from our peer group. I remember there were times during that same period of my life when I was traveling all the time and just kind of like, like your peer group kind of moves in waves. Like you could say, like using the 80-20 rule, like 80% of them might get married between like 25 and 30. 80% of them might have kids between 30 and 30. So like, if a whole group of your friends is living, we'll just say more conventionally, and you're not, it sometimes makes you question if you're on the right path. At least it did.
Definitely. Oh yeah. For years, like, while I was in university still, and I was working my way through it, and I still had my company, so I was doing that as well. So definitely pretty busy trying to graduate super quick and go to Japan. I was thinking during that time, and then even a few years later, like, am I on the right path? And I remember asking a guy I met in Japan, a Polish guy named Marius, and he was doing something similar, like a freelance coder for companies, and he was traveling around the world. And this was 2004, and staying in touch with him after we met him in Japan and partied a little bit together. And he's definitely 20 plus years older than me. So I'm like, okay, this guy's got some experience. He seems like a pretty fun, go lucky, happy guy. And I remember like meeting with them and talking, and then setting up another date to like kind of grab beers with them and talk, and just to kind of get some feedback from someone that was doing it, because I knew nobody, like almost nobody the first 10 years that was doing anything like I was doing. My friends would nickname me the spy, or, like they're like, how do you travel all around and do this and that? And like, we're talking like pre-2010. Are they like smuggling drugs or arms, and weapons, like God of War style? Like, like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, yeah, I just like make websites and stuff. And they're like, okay, there.
Yeah, this is
Okay,
before
spy.
digital nomad was
Yeah,
mainstream.
yeah. Like, I was doing it, before like 4 Hour Work Week and stuff. And back before, like, there was broadband. I mean, it was still pretty spotty when I started in like 2002, but Skype was not yet a thing when I was starting, and online payments, and yeah, so like it was, the tools weren't really there. The community definitely wasn't there. Maybe it was, but it was super fragmented. So there wasn't many people, and there wasn't really any forum that I knew of to connect with people, and so it was isolating. And I had to keep like checking in, with this guy, and still like with myself, being like, am I doing this right? And I was still thinking, after a few years running my own company, all right, like eventually I'm going to use this and I'm just going to get a job at a company. But eventually, after a few years, it got to the point where I was making enough money. And I thought, well, do I really want to do that? And I just decided not to. But it was like not a clear cut decision. It was, a lot of people that know me today, like, wow, you started your business at 19 and you just like continued with it. But it hasn't just like always been like, oh yeah, I'm totally sure of what I'm doing and where I'm going, and I'm going to like continue on this path. Like, some people are like that. And I give them like, I'm a little bit envious. I give them a lot of credit. I think it's just like a personality type. But for me, I was like, all right, I'm going to try this out. I'm pretty tolerant of risk, and we'll see what happens, but I'm not afraid to pivot and change course if necessary.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that. I think this is good for people listening, anybody who's, on the fence with maybe making a transition to a more, say, nomadic or remote work type lifestyle. Like maybe you're working remotely, but you haven't used it to your advantage to incorporate the travel aspect. I mean, Scott was doing this with, not many tools, not good internet, no community, and look at everything that we have at our disposal now. I mean, it's easier than it ever has been in history to live this kind of lifestyle. So
yeah, you youngins don't know what we went through. Walked uphill to school and both ways in snow.
but I mean, on the other side, it's also like, I think there are still paths like that you described where maybe there isn't much of a community, or you don't feel like there is, or the tools are a little hard. I'm sure there are people listening right now that are on some kind of path that is the current version of the, early aughts to 2010 version of what you did. And just know that you're probably not doing it alone. Like I was like you, I always thought that when I was living the nomadic lifestyle around the same time, we did it basically around the same time, like late 90s to, I mean, I think you're still pretty nomadic. I'm not sure if you have a base now, but
No, I still have pretty much never had a fixed address. Like, I've got my voting/mail address. That's my dad's house in Metro Detroit, Michigan. But besides that, really have never ever had a place of my own, ever. Like, I've never had a lease. I've never bought a place. Nope.
yeah, I had a hard time getting that stuff later on. I was like, this is gonna like tie me down, but
I still feel that way. Also, it's just not a good use of my time, mental overhead, and money based on my life right now. Like, I wouldn't say I would never do that, but right now it's like, okay, like, would I get a spot, and then when I'm not at home, pre-COVID, I was traveling 9 months a year on average, and what do I do with that time? Just have it sit there, and I pay, to travel and live places while I also pay a mortgage. And, yeah, you could rent it out, but like, do I really want to have a bunch of Airbnb people coming in? I know a lot of people that do property management, our friend Trav and whatnot. And like, there's definitely a certain amount of mental overhead you have. Like, even when you have a company managing it, which obviously takes a nice chunk of your profits. I just know people that have done it, and they're just like, man, there's just always something, like, you're woken up at 3 a.m, the water main broke, and like, I just don't want to deal with it. This is not my jam.
I totally understand, man. Well, I think there's a moment, maybe it's not a moment. Maybe it's I guess I should say a process when you can question a lot of the way you're living when it's way different from everybody around you. Right. And then at some point you transcend that, right? Where you embrace that this is the lifestyle you choose. And then I feel like you don't question it as much. You just own your decision and enjoy it.
DGAF, don't give up. Beep.
Yeah. Right. That's an important place to get to. I think I in some ways, thinking back to like those nomadic days, I feel like I was there sometimes, and other times it was a lot of questions because it was so unconventional. But I think it's better to get there as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's going to be different for every single person. Yeah, at this point, having met, literally met and talked to literally hundreds, if not over 1,000 people, doing their own journey through working remotely or being a digital nomad or anything along those lines. Everyone's story is so different. Everyone has their own challenges, and growing up in a different culture or not having your parents' approval or support, or there's so many things that can impact it, and everyone's got their own story, and you just gotta, it just depends on like what's most important to you, right? Are you willing to buck the trend and do something different, or to go for your own happiness, or to try to experiment and see if it works for you? Everyone's so different. I've met people that have tried it for a few years and start up their own company and everything, and then they're like, what, this isn't really for me. I'm gonna go get a job at a company. There was definitely a point in time when I kind of looked down upon those people. I'm like, why are you quitting so early? Come on, like you could do it. But I've definitely seen that it's not for everyone. But I give them a lot of props now. Like when I think back, I'm like, it wasn't necessarily built in. I feel like it's kind of built into me, to this urge to create and run businesses and to travel around the world. Like even though they're two separate things, I feel like both of them are kind of always been a part of me, even when I was a kid. Starting up like business plans on paper when I was like 9 years old, and just, it's weird. Like, I was definitely a little bit of a weird kid, but I always wanted to create, and I always wanted to travel. Grandparents were travelers. They'd always like bring back like money and photos and stuff and tell us stories about traveling to the USSR or China in the 1980s. Like they're pretty prolific travelers after retirement. And so, like it was just kind of in my blood. But I know a lot of people where it wasn't necessarily in their blood, and they're just like, I'm going to give it a shot. And, like props if you give it a shot and it doesn't work out, and you're like, you just admit it, and you're like, I'm going to try something different.
Totally.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's key. Giving it a shot and maybe curating the right feelings or perspectives or ideas, right? If you're letting the pressures of family or society or what friends think or whatever influence your decision, whatever path you're on, then I think it's just good to parse that stuff out, like we said, right? Like kind of like protect your little bubble and do the thing you want to do and try it out.
Yeah, and not to even like to like disregard those huge roadblocks, because like I know people that like it's a lot tougher for them than me. Like I'm lucky, my parents are like, do what makes you happy, and they just support whatever I do. Yeah, there was like a bit of, hey, like I cut out some job openings from the newspaper for you, like, the first few years, or like, so like, when are you going to get a job, like that kind of thing. But, for the first few years, yeah, but it wasn't extreme. They're happy with where I'm at and everything. I haven't really had any pressure to go a different way. Whereas I know people that like, their parents are like, go to school, go to graduate school, become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, especially like a lot of my friends from Asian families. Or like just like there's a lot of that. There's like society isn't set up yet for that kind of like path, or to encourage that path. We're getting there. Like there's a lot more community now. There's a lot more resources. It's becoming a lot easier. But there's still like people, many people face like a lot more challenges than I did getting into it. And so like, extra props to those people.
Absolutely. But I think that's where the value of sharing these types of stories here on a podcast like this, that's where it comes in, right? I mean, you can, even though everybody's situation is different, it's still nice to hear that there are people out there that are kind of going against the normal thing and finding their own way to do it. And I mean, you've certainly found a unique way to incorporate travel into your life over the years with the web development stuff, and then going full on with running trips and everything like that, which I want to get into a bit now. I'm curious why it seems like there was a heavy focus for you on Asia, and then you ended up running trips in Africa. I'm just wondering about the influence of like Eastern culture on you as an individual. And I guess I'm surprised that you didn't start running trips in Japan because you had such this connection with it.
But I did.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah, I wanted to hear how that kind of evolved for you.
So like the safari thing was totally like happenstance. I went on a safari with my father in 2010. It was on his bucket list. We actually went with the same company that we're here right now with in the UK. And so we went there. I of course love animals. I've always loved animals. It's like one of the things from the get-go. Like when I was born, I always loved animals. Always had like a bunch of like aquariums and stuff, and I'd go out and catch frogs and turtles and snakes and yeah. And so I went over there, had a great time. We had 3 guides for our group of 16 people. And I befriended one of our guides who was not actually the trip leader. He's one of the assistant guides. And he obviously like was better than the other 2 people, like just like cut and dry, like above them as far as, in a few ways, knowledge of animals, humor. He's very personable. And everyone kind of like went for his Land Cruiser every morning. I remember getting into his car so many times because there's like 6 people per Land Cruiser, let's say. And I remember getting in it and thinking like, oh, I should probably give other people a chance because I'm like the quickest one because I'm the young one and everyone else is like retirees. And thinking like, oh, I should probably like give other people a chance. And so I'm
like running to the car and eating his dust.
I would try not to make it that obvious, but like something like that. Dibs, shotgun. But like, yeah, so I became friends with him. And after that trip ended, I stayed on for another couple of weeks in Tanzania. To visit Zanzibar on my own, and then to climb Kilimanjaro, where a friend from the UK was going to fly down and climb it with me. And I got his contact info, the guide, Josh, I got his contact info, and he kind of helped me out with some of the logistics and, getting the bus from here to there and whatnot. And I just had him available for texting. And after the trip was totally finished, so I went up and down Kili, and that last day, he took me and my friend to his home and met his wife and 2 kids at that time. Now he's got 3. And I said to him, have you ever thought about doing your own thing? You're obviously like really good at what you do. And here's a proposal. And this is all, it kind of happened like this, but yeah, this is basically it summed up. Here's a proposal. I know how to set up and manage businesses remotely. You know everything on the ground here. I also know your target market, Americans. And so what do you say we join forces? And I was initially thinking, I'll just send business your way and I'll just take a cut of it, like a commission. And it ended up being like a bit more work than that. And so in the end, we actually formed a 50-50 partnership where he would take care of everything on the ground. He would make the reservations and take care of everything on the ground and use his connections and everything. And I would manage the business, everything basically besides that. I said, if it doesn't work out, no harm, no foul. It'll basically just be my time and effort to set it up in the beginning. So we did that starting 2011, came up with the name Pamoja Travel or Pamoja Safaris, which means it actually means the same thing. So funny enough, so the LLC we have in the US is called Pamoja Travel with a doing business as is Pamoja Safaris, but it actually means the same thing. So safari means travel or journey, and Pamoja means together. So it's travel together. So whether you say Pamoja Travel or Pamoja Safaris means travel together. And so it ended up working very slowly. I was still doing a lot of web development and stuff, and didn't really have the money or resources to go out there and put money into like advertising, marketing, paid ads, and stuff like that. So it was a very slow start, but eventually we started reaching some momentum. Put a little bit more effort in the website and some marketing videos and stuff like that. And still today, it's mostly referral based. People have a great time. Everyone has a great time and they recommend it to their friends and family. And we've grown primarily through that. We really, even 10 years in, which is I think, a rarity. We have not spent a single penny on commission, either to a travel agent or a company or like a third party website, like Get Your Guide or something like that. And we have not spent a single penny on advertising or marketing, not a single thing. Now, is that necessarily the best way to get your business started? No. If you've got the money, like definitely you can speed things up by, putting some money into backing your company. But we just didn't have it at the time. So we just did things the organic way, and eventually it worked out. And here we are over 10 years later, providing custom private safari trips for small groups, no set date departures or anything. Everything's custom. So whether it's a single traveler, or it's a couple or a family or an enthusiast group or a business get together, something like that, we do that. So he was used to doing my guide, my business partner, Josh, he was used to doing set group departures, 16 people generally every time for this one company. And, it's a little bit more work to do it the way we're doing, but we found a lot of people want that private experience. And because we have a low overhead, we are able to offer that at about the same price as joining a group of 16. Now, some people want to join a group of 16, especially if you're like a solo traveler. You may not want to go there by yourself. Our guides are fun and they're very personable, and they'll be fun to hang out with, guaranteed. But it's not everyone's jam, so I still tell people, sometimes they'll come to us and be like, oh, when's your next group going out? I'm a single traveler. And I'm like, well, I've got some recommendations of places you could go to, but we only do like private groups. So we're like, tell us when you want to come, number of days, number of people. We will create the perfect itinerary for you. If you have anything in particular you want to see or do, let us know. We'll build that in, and we'll give it to you at a great price.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. Now, back to the show. I loved hearing the history of that and how you and Josh met and kind of just sort of randomly worked that out, right?
Yeah, I was never planning on getting into travel or tourism. I was never planning on having a safari company. Like I said, like earlier, I was thinking it'd be a nice side hustle. I'd get some extra money out of it. Wouldn't be too difficult. It'd be a funny conversation starter. Something like that. Ended up being like full-time job for sure. But it all goes to just random meeting. I met the right person and I created a business out of that. Like without Josh, I wouldn't have the company. And he's been an awesome partner, all around, no complaints there. I was super lucky to find him, and he was the number one rated guide in the whole country for this company he worked for before. Quarter over quarter over quarter, he was number one. And it's very common to have guests come with us, and in their trip review form that they send me after the trip, they rave just as much about Josh as the animals.
Yeah, that's great.
So, and we have other guides too nowadays, but we make sure like the number one thing we do, find awesome talent, like the top 10% of the talent that has 10 plus years of experience, and then treat them well, pay them well, and keep them with you, because like that's really what it's all about, is having like the most important thing by far, whether it's a safari or any other kind of guided trip, where you're spending a lot of time with your guide, is that guide. If they're cool and fun, and your trip's going to be fun no matter what, even if you like don't see a bunch of animals, which is not even a thing in Tanzania, you're always going to see a ton of animals. But like if you don't have a guide that is personable, speaks English, where you don't have to like struggle to understand them, knows the animals, stuff like that, it's just going to take away from your trip. I think people underestimate that. They think, everything's kind of the same, and if I can save $1,000 or whatever, I'll just go with this other company. But it's a very lucrative business to be in Tanzania and many places in Africa. So a lot of people are going into it. And so you've got a ton of people that are safari guides. It's their first year, or it's their second year or third year. And like, not to knock that, everyone has to start somewhere. But when you're spending thousands of dollars to go on a trip of a lifetime, and for a lot of people, like this is a one-time thing. This is a bucket list experience, right? You don't necessarily want to spend your money and just roll the dice. So, we take that very seriously, as far as like, this is for many people a one-time thing. They're spending a lot of money. They're spending a lot of their vacation time. We want to make sure it's awesome. And not to mention, like, obviously, if it's awesome, we get referrals and we get more business. But it's a very important thing. A lot of our guests are Americans, and they have like 2 weeks of vacation a year, and this is half or most of their vacation time.
Hmm.
And so I take that very seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just on the business side, one thing I just wanted to pull out is the fact that you had this idea, you met this individual, and then you kind of seized the moment, right? I think that sometimes these ideas come and we meet a certain person. And in that case, if you're partnering up with somebody or whatever the case is, and I mean, you could have kind of traveled around, stayed in touch, maybe had that dinner, gone back, thought about it a little more, spend a couple years, whatever. But you had the meeting and you said, hey, let's just jump into this and see and kind of test the waters here. And I think that was obviously a great idea.
Right
it's still
place, right
going, but
time.
even if it didn't work out, I think it's a good lesson to kind of like, hey, if you want to get into different businesses and different types of opportunities, sometimes you have to just do that, right? You have to just dive in and kind of figure out a way where you can just get it going right away and see if it's going to work, because you can wait forever and not ever do anything with it. And then the moment's gone, or the person's moved on to something else, or whatever the case.
Yeah, hands up for serendipity.
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
yeah. I mean, had I not gone on that trip,
Are you a guy that believes in serendipity and that sort of?
I mean, I don't know. Whatever you call it, chance, the universe. I'm sure there's a lot of words for what basically boils down to the same thing. I can't really say I'm much of a spiritual or kind of woo-woo type of guy, but even if you just call it chance, like probability, then like, yeah, it's luck, whatever you want to say.
A big part of this show is even now I know you just described everything you do, and obviously there's tons of value there, but I did want to get your advice for anybody that's DIYing this type of thing as an independent traveler. First, I just wanted to ask you, how might going on a safari make you live your life differently?
So I think I don't know if necessarily it would be something that would change your life in that way. We've had a lot of people that I know, like I said, I've got a ton of digital nomad friends that traveled for years, have been doing this for a decade plus, have traveled to 100 countries, let's say. And I've had quite a few of them say, like, this is the best vacation experience of their life, which is pretty humbling. It's pretty cool. And I think it's like I was saying, it's kind of a bucket list experience for people, where you don't really feel complete until you do it, and it's magical just to kind of see. So you got the animals and you got the people. The people there are from many different tribes, many different types of tribes as well. You've got the Nilotic, you've got the Bantu, and you've got the traditional people of that area, like the Hadzabe. And so I kind of split into two things. So you've got the people, which is, it's just always interesting to me. And I think for a lot of our travelers to spend time with the people and see how they live and interact with them and ask them questions and have them ask questions back. And so we always build that into all of our trips, um, in a non-commercialized way. Like a lot of companies will like go to this like fake Maasai village where they've got a bunch of like beadwork set out, and they're basically there to do a song and dance, like literally, and then sell you beads and stuff. And so we try to avoid that and actually like make connections with real families and go back there time and time again, and just so you have like an authentic experience and it's not something made up for the tourists. And some people will spend some time with the Hadza tribe, where they're one of the last hunter gatherers of that region of Africa, Eastern Africa. And it's really cool if you could spend a night, maybe even 2 nights with them and go hunting with them in the morning. And they make all of their bows and arrows from hand or by hand, and they'll get out up with the sunrise and they'll just run and try to catch something. If they catch meat, great. If they don't eat meat that day. And they've lived this way for thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years. And very interesting. The people that have gone, it's something we don't do with every trip. It's a very special custom experience. that just a few people have done, and we don't really want to commercialize it for sure because there's only 500 to 1,000 of these people left on Earth. But it's very, very interesting. Like that could be life changing to see how we all used to live and we all used to survive. They don't have homes. They follow the game and they have like stick huts, so they live inside of trees. They don't really have any possessions. There's no leader in the group. And so this tribe has been used as a research focus for a lot of scientists and ethnographers and uh, they kind of study this tribe to see they're one of the last links to how we all used to live pre-dawn of agriculture and cities and whatnot. And that's really cool for me. And anybody who like knows enough to request that, it's a really cool experience. Like the hunting and stuff by itself is cool, but then just to spend time sitting around the campfire with these people, and you don't understand what they're saying. They're just going around. They speak in clicks, like that. Like it's very, very cool. That I think could be life changing. The animals and stuff separately. If you're into animals, obviously, like you do a safari. Like it's a thing. As a fellow animal lover, to see them in their natural habitat. In Kenya, more in Kenya and like South Africa, there's reserves where they like stock the animals and they're fenced in. You don't see the fences generally, like they're giant areas. But it's not natural. Like they are animals that generally would like live in that area and everything, but they're managed. And but in East Africa, particularly like Tanzania, Serengeti, and Ngorongoro Crater, like these are all giant national parks, the size of like Delaware and stuff like that. And Tanzania has multiple parks like that. And the animals are just left to do their thing. There are no fences, and so you're seeing kind of what even like North America, what things used to be like with the untouched nature and relatively untouched and just thousands of animals everywhere. Like North America used to be like that. There used to be millions of buffalo roaming around the West, and we've lost all that. It's just kind of cool to for both the human interaction side and the animal interaction side to see where we came from and just marvel at it. And it's a little bit sad that we don't have that in many places. I think a lot of there's a lot of efforts to repopulate. They've got bison repopulation in the UK now, and then in Canada, and we're realizing that we lost an important part of our ecosystem and trying to replace that. But this is one of those few places on Earth that you can experience something like that.
I know you run the trips in Tanzania, but what are the best places for a wildlife safari in Africa? If you could share, like somebody listening to this, we're like, all right, we're going to plan a safari. Let's start with where are we going to go? How long should we go for? When's the best time to go? All that sort of 101 stuff.
Let's see. I would say, obviously, I'm biased towards Tanzania because I got a company there and everything, but I've been through almost all of Northern Africa, Eastern Africa, Southern Africa. I've been to these other safari destinations. Tanzania is a little bit more expensive because their park fees are higher. And they use that money, a large part of it, to put back into the ecosystem for anti-poaching campaigns, to teach local communities about the value of tourism, and to just kind of protect what they have. But we do trips in Tanzania. We also do trips that incorporate both Kenya and Tanzania as well. We do Kilimanjaro hiking in Tanzania. Zanzibar beach holidays. About half of our guests go to Zanzibar afterwards, spend a few days there to relax before they head home. But also we've got the chimpanzees. Jane Goodall's chimpanzee families are in Tanzania, something I didn't even know until a few years after I started the company. They live in the west of the country, and that's really cool. I just did that last year, just 8 months ago or so, and wow, that was amazing. I was just telling some people about that yesterday. It was just super, super cool to hang out with the chimpanzees. Another kind of just link to our past, obviously distant past, but just to see them, just to see how human they are in many ways. And so Tanzania has like all this. I'm going to start with Tanzania. I'm going to move on though, but as a lot of different things that you can't find any other place, like Kilimanjaro, like Ngorongoro Crater, the world's largest unflooded volcano caldera, 12 by 12 miles. It's filled with animal wildlife, like animals, and you can go down in there, and there's just animals everywhere. And the Serengeti, which is incorporates like 90% of the area where the great wildebeest migration happens, where there's millions of wildebeest going around in a circle, basically around the Serengeti and then up past the Mara River into Kenya. And they're in Kenya about 2 months out of the year. The rest of the time they're in Tanzania. And so you've got the Great Wildebeest Migration, you've got the Serengeti, you've got Ngorongoro Crater, you've got Kilimanjaro, you've got the coast as well, and then you've got all of the parks in the south of Tanzania, like Selu, now called Nyerere Park, or Ruaha Park, which are even bigger than the Serengeti, and much less touristed. And so those are kind of hidden gems that we recommend for people coming back, like for their second or third time. So a lot of different stuff there. Something that Tanzania doesn't have are gorillas. A lot of people want to go gorilla trekking, and those are found primarily in Uganda, Rwanda, a little bit in Burundi, and DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. DRC can be a little bit sketch at times. It goes through a lot of political and social uprisings. Not the easiest place to do trekking necessarily. But it's the cheapest. Rwanda's the most expensive, $1,500 per person per day. You get 1 hour with the gorillas. Very expensive, but they do a great job. And it looks like their gorilla families are repopulating, and they're doing a great job of management. And then you've got Uganda, which is a little bit cheaper. It's $650 per person per day. Again, you have 1 hour. So you hike into the gorillas. You have to get to the park, which is Bwindi National Park. Bwindi Impenetrable Forest is what they call it. And that's where a lot of the gorillas live. And you hike in, and it could take 30 minutes, could take 3 hours until you find the gorilla family. Right when you see them, clock starts ticking. Got 1 hour, hang around with the gorillas, take photos, and then you hike out again. So that's a cool thing to do. A lot of people do it. Sometimes people do it in the same trip if they've got the time and money. We just had a group do that after they did Tanzania. And it's a short flight away to any of those countries. They're all basically bordering Tanzania or bordering Lake Victoria, which borders Tanzania. So that's a cool experience as well. And then you've got Southern Africa. So you've got Kenya also, which is very similar to Tanzania. It's a lot of the same cultures. The Maasai people live there as well. A lot of shared history. It used to be part of British East Africa. And so it's a little bit more cosmopolitan, a little bit more developed. Like they've got a nice tech sector in Nairobi. You've got again a big coastline with Mombasa on the coast, and beach holiday type stuff. A little bit less parks, but they've got Mount Kenya, which is a large mountain, not quite as big as Kilimanjaro, but a lot of people like to climb that, and there's a lot of wildlife, but very much similar to Tanzania. I would say a few more tourists because, like I said, it is a little bit less expensive, and a little bit more of a risk of issues just from like Al-Shabaab and bordering Somalia. They've had a lot of issues. Generally not where tourists go. I should preface that it's generally closer to the border with Somalia, but things happen around there. There's definitely that issue for the past 10 plus years, where luckily it's a little bit less of an issue in Tanzania. And then you've got Botswana, the Okavango Delta, which is really cool. A lot of elephants down there, a lot of more of like wetlands and whatnot, where you see a little bit different animals. And you also have that in Zambia and Zimbabwe, where you also have Victoria Falls, which is really cool to see, highest waterfalls. And you've got Devil's Pool, where you can jump in right next to the waterfall, which is really cool during certain times of the year. Tons of wildlife, tons of elephants in Hwange National Park in Zimbabwe, just over the border from Zambia. And then you've got South Africa, of course, which has safari parks all over and a lot of reserves. Like I said, the private game reserves, some which allow hunting, some which don't. And they're kind of managed to a certain extent, but they're giant areas where you can still go in and see animals. They're not necessarily 100% what I would call natural, just because there is a little bit of management involved and there are fences a lot of times, but Still a cool experience. Like, if you're going to South Africa, I would definitely check that out. And South Africa also has a bunch of other cool stuff to do. The wine route in the southwest, and you've got great white shark cage diving. And Cape Town, beautiful, beautiful spot. So Africa has a lot to offer. There's even more beyond that. Those are the main things kind of like I think about when I think of safaris. Namibia also, a little bit less safari focused, a little bit more adventure tourism focused, like go there, rent a car, drive around. But they also have safari. They've got animals there too, cheetahs and a lot of types of antelope and whatnot.
I'm waiting for the mic drop on those recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been all over Africa.
There you go. I mean, that's a crazy, great breakdown on all of the different regions and the things that you can see. I'm wondering if you can just help us distill some of that down into like, yeah, if someone's planning a trip for the first time, obviously they could go with your company, and there's a lot of perks there as we discussed. But if you're talking to somebody and they're kind of planning their own thing and they want to have it to be affordable but quality, what's the process like? First, I guess you got to pick an area you want to go to. And I know this is a huge question that you can't really have one catch-all perfect answer, but I guess I'm just kind of wondering, where should somebody start with all of this information?
Yeah. So safaris, like, have a kind of a reputation for being expensive. It's one of those things that we tried to combat as far as like, our marketing, as far as you don't have to be retired and save up 10, 20 grand a person to do a safari.
That's
you can do that.
That's like the common perception sometimes, I feel.
Yeah. And you can do that. You can totally do that. And we have people that ask for that. They're like, we want like really nice accommodation, 4 seasons. Yeah. And we can do that.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. And like, that's cool. Like the kind of hidden secret about safari companies, the upper end ones, there are a lot of budget ones. And I'll get into that in a second, but the higher end safari companies, which I will include our own, the big difference is that a lot of them have guides with a lot of experience that are really good. Most of them will use very good vehicles. Make sure you don't have any breakdowns along the way, that they're comfortable, because you spend a lot of time in that vehicle every day. The big difference is accommodation. Yeah. So we obviously make sure that we try to get even better guides than the rest of those companies. And we have even better vehicles, but the accommodation is really like, we start off at 3, generally 4 stars. And that's good enough for most people. Like I would say more often than not, people are surprised at the level of accommodation they get when they go over there. And they're like, wow, this is like a lot better than we thought we were going to get, for this price point. So I would say I would start with, the country you're going to. So like, where do you want to go? I would say most people, when they do a safari for the first time, they're either going to South Africa or they're going to Kenya or Tanzania. So that's the first thing. Like I said, Tanzania is a little bit more expensive because of park fees, but there's a lot of stuff in Tanzania you can't see anywhere else. Like if you're only to do one safari in your life, I'm biased, but I would say Tanzania, just because of the wealth of different experiences it offers. If you could only stick to one country, right? Secondly, I get some requests about camping safaris. So a lot of the cost of a safari is the accommodation, especially when you're staying in an accommodation in a park, which you have to do basically in Serengeti for the most part. You have to pay extra fees. So you have to pay the park fee, and you have to pay the accommodation fee. And then you have to pay another fee per night per person to stay at a lodge within the park. So it's like fees on top of fees on top of fees. And people don't necessarily like know that going in. So just be aware that that's like a thing. And a lot of people may be looking to do it on the cheap, but just be aware that you're paying for what you get. You get what you pay for, right? So if
you have to go for the company, right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you like I'm saying, I'd love it if you came with us, but regardless, do your research and look at the reviews online. And if something's like a lot less expensive than something else, there's a reason for it. You're either getting a crappy car or a guide without much experience, or you're still going to see the animals. It's just not going to be the best. It's not going to be the best it could be. You may still have a great time. Could it be better? Yeah. Some people will be happy with that, and they'll be happy to save a little bit of money. But like as an example, when I first climbed Kilimanjaro, I booked with a company that was one of the cheaper ones. And I went up there and I made it up and down. And then, like we had some grovels, like we're like, my friend and I were like, like this is kind of weird and whatnot. It wasn't until I started running my own safari or my Kilimanjaro tours that I realized how crappy that experience was. Like the guide, it was one guide, and then it was the two of us, and then we had like a few porters and a chef. And the quality of food that we got, the quality of guiding that we got was crap, absolute crap. I can tell you this, like looking back, I'm like, wow, like no wonder we paid a few $100 less a person because like they weren't paying their guides much. I guarantee you, like, they weren't paying the guides very much, and they weren't feeding them much. Another way that they save money. Like you learn about all this stuff going into the industry that you would never know as someone on the ground. You don't know that they would only feed their porters like once a day with like this gruel, whereas like we feed them like 3 times a day, like stuff like that you'll
That's what
you'll
makes
never
it
find
hard.
out.
Like, how do you know? How can you know
You,
those
you
things?
you won't know. Like nobody knows this until you go in and you just see what happens, from the inside out. And so it's, yeah, just know that if you're paying less, significantly less, it's coming from somewhere. It's either going to affect you or the staff or both.
Well, there's things you can read about. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm just curious because there's two approaches to this. I feel. I mean, I remember doing the whole Machu Picchu thing, and this was a long time ago, but it was like if you pre-booked it, it would cost like thousands of dollars. But at that time, when I showed up and like walked around town and found like a reputable place, and at that time you could do that there and book with them, it cost like a few hundred compared to a few thousand. Like I don't remember the exact cost, but it was like a huge difference, right? So there's like those two approaches. You can like pre-book something before you leave. And then I feel like in some cases, I'm not saying in your case, because we already heard about your company and how much money you guys put into marketing, which is zero. But like, some of these bigger companies, I mean, they have a lot of marketing dollars behind promoting these trips. So then
and they subcontract.
Yeah, and
They
so you're paying a lot more.
subcontract to those people that you found. The big companies that are like American owned or foreign owned, they generally don't have their own staff on the ground. They subcontract through those people that you found selling tours for a few $100s.
So should people show up and just find a place if they want to do it like that? Is that a thing, or is it?
That's tough. That's tough. I can only speak for Tanzania. Sometimes we have people doing that where they show up. It's generally the people like slow traveling, have a lot of time.
Right.
Most people, like, they're going to fly in and they're going to fly back. They don't have like a bunch of time on the ground to just like sort through different options and whatnot. Like they want to know what they're getting before they go because they don't have all that vacation time.
It's more of a time thing, but it is possible if you have time to kind of.
It's possible. It's very infrequent, very rare. I could say like with us, one reason we're able to keep our cost down besides saving on marketing and advertising is that we are locally owned. Like, yes, I am a partner in it, but like we are based there. My partner is Tanzanian. He's a Maasai guy. He's been doing this for over 20 years. And so like we are not subcontracting through anyone. Whereas the company I'm on right now on this trip, the same company I went on to Tanzania for the first time, they subcontract through another company that's a local company in Tanzania. And they have them wear their own shirts and have their logo put on the side of the vehicle. And they're like, oh yeah, these are our people. But they're not. They're all subcontractors. So every subcontract layer, you add more money to it. Everyone's got to make their profit, right? So you could go direct to the source. If you could find, I mean, I would recommend this for any place in the world. If you could find a company that is locally owned and run, you're going to pay generally less because you've got one less layer of bureaucracy to go through.
And how can you know? I mean, some of the things, it's hard to know, of course, but I think some of the things you're bringing up are really important. Like you said, this kind of spans the tourism sort of, let's call it package tours industry, right? Like if you're able to suss out who's local and who has the least amount of maybe middlemen, right? Or like subcontractors, like you said. And then some of the ethical things you brought up, because I was going to ask you about choosing an ethical company, right? Like if I imagine some of these companies are forward with like how they treat their guides and things like that. If you're not seeing any of that stuff and it's a lot more inexpensive, you're saying, it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to kind of process and research, but you can identify some red flags in some ways. Is that what you're saying? Like,
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of times you can't, like you said,
yeah,
a lot of people will not do the research. Even people that do the research, they're not going to be able to find their answers, or companies won't be forthcoming. Um,
but
and
they have to answer
so
you honestly, right? Like if you call this company you're with and you're like, hey, do you guys use subcontractors in Africa? Like they should.
generally, I would say for the subcontracting question, that's a little bit easier to find out. I think you could go on these websites and see their backstory, and it'll show, do they have an address in Tanzania? Where they started. The most page websites will have like an about page, like when was it started, who was it started by. We try to have the best of both worlds with Pamoja Safaris, because not only are we a local company, not subcontracted, half owned by a local guy, but also we're incorporated in the U.S. So we give that peace of mind. We accept credit cards. Some companies based over there, they can't. Most companies don't accept credit cards because the credit card processing is still not a thing over there for tour companies. Like PayPal doesn't operate over there. TransferWise and stuff is like difficult. Like you can't really do that. And so we try to offer that peace of mind. We're a locally registered company in the U.S. We have a presence. We have a phone number. We have an office over in the U.S. We take credit cards. So just in case, like somebody thought, oh, they could be a scam company, and I don't want to wire money over there because I have no recourse. I can't get that money back. But at least with a credit card or PayPal or whatever, you have that option to file a dispute if something was ever wrong and you need to get your money back. It gives a little bit
It
of
adds
peace
a
of
layer of
mind.
protection.
Yeah. And I found that a lot of people, again, we deal with like a lot of Americans, but also people from around the world, like they appreciate having that peace of mind, and also even being able to use credit cards, because not everyone has the cash right up front. They'd rather put it on the card and pay it off over time. And so that's another kind of good thing.
I was going to ask you about travel insurance for a safari, and I mean, you just get general travel insurance. If there's anything, I'm just wondering with safaris specifically, if there are any special concerns for like maybe families that are taking kids or individuals with travel insurance things, or anything like that, like anything that makes it different than the regular travel experience that we should know.
Not really. All of our trips are super safe. That we get that a lot from families, especially asking if it's safe for children. We've never had any incidents, even on Kilimanjaro, of anybody getting hurt or attacked or anything. I've had a few people say, like, I'm afraid to go because I don't want to get attacked by a lion. Like that never ever happens. And it's super safe. I always recommend going to a developing country that you get travel insurance. Like we're drinking bottled water the whole time, and you wash your toothbrush with bottled water. And all of our chefs are trained in how to properly prepare meals, and they wash their salads in mineral water and stuff like that. So we're very used to making sure everyone has a good time, and prevalence of stomach issues and stuff is kept at a bare minimum. Yeah, I would always recommend having travel insurance, just because it costs so little. Like to get basic travel insurance, like you're talking like $20-$30 per person for your whole time there. It's a little bit different for Kilimanjaro. So for travel insurance for safari, generally any travel insurance will work. For Kilimanjaro, not only do you have to have what's usually called like an adventure rider, for like adventure sports or activities, you have to actually have a special one on top of that allows for climbing a mountain over a certain elevation. Generally, it's like 15,000 feet, 5,000 meters. You need to have a special kind of thing in the insurance. There's only a few insurance companies allow for where you're able to climb up that high and it'll still protect you. So that's something to consider for Kilimanjaro. Yeah, definitely. So you just, but if you're not doing Kilimanjaro, generally any other travel insurance is going to work.
Okay. We've covered a lot of ground here. I guess I should just, if we can summarize sort of like, again, I think everybody understands the perspective you're coming from in terms of like places to go and things like that. Obviously, it costs money to go on safari. So for the question of how to plan an affordable safari and kind of answering that in a few, just your best advice on that. And maybe this includes some budget ranges, like, hey, if you want crappy guides and this, you're probably going to pay this. If you want,
so like We charge on average, of course, it depends on the group size, it depends on time of year. Um, but like we always tell people, just off the top of my head, when someone says, okay, how much does it cost per day? We say all inclusive ground costs, airport pickup to drop off, besides alcohol, plan for $500 per person per day, all inclusive.
And is that
You
like
could,
sort of moderate pricing for safari
yeah,
experiences in general?
you will be comfortable the entire way. We've got nice, like I said, almost like 4-star accommodation. Even in the Serengeti, you've got like a full-size bed, flush toilets, warm water showers. Like you're not roughing it at all. But if you want to go above that, like we've got, Four Seasons and places with pools in the middle of the Serengeti and stuff like that. So like that's a general, like it's a good baseline. But I would say. And this is for Tanzania again. Like the pricing is a little bit different. Other places, Kenya, South Africa, could be cheaper. But also research your company that you're going with. Try to get one that's not subcontracting. It's based there, at least wholly or partially owned by a local. And yeah, besides that, I would
Have fun.
say, yeah, I mean, have fun. I would say number of days for Tanzania to do the general, we call it like the northern circuit, where you fly in and out to Arusha, which is the main departure for safaris, and Kilimanjaro treks in northern Tanzania. A lot of people just do like an 8-day trip. So you got arrival day, 6 days of safari, and then a departure day. And that'll just be, they'll fly out on a Friday, they'll get there on Saturday, and then they'll leave the next Saturday or Sunday and arrive the same day, like either Saturday or Sunday. So that way they only have to take 5 vacation days, Monday through Friday. A lot of people really like that if they're still working, and they don't have flexible work or they're not retired. That's like a good way to hit up a lot of the stuff and not feel too rushed. But if you have a few more days, like makes even better if you can spend 10 or 12, or if you're spending 12 or 14, you can hit up Kenya as well. You can go to like Masai Mara Park, and you can maybe even hit up the Giraffe Manor, the thing you see in a bunch of social media where the giraffes like come in your window and like eat breakfast with you. Like super popular, by the way. If you want to ever do that, book it well in advance, like over 6-8 months in advance.
Okay.
Oh, one other thing, camping. Some people, I was about to say this earlier, camping safaris. A lot of people ask about like budget camping safaris. We don't do that at all, because even though it is less money, it's not like a lot less money than just getting a less expensive tented camp in the Serengeti. And so, because you're still paying the camping fee, you're still paying for someone to set up your camp every night, you're still paying for the cook to be there to make your meals. The thing is, you have to be in the campsite. It's a rustic campsite where you set up a tent and everything. You still have to be there before dusk every day. So because of that, it cuts short your day sightseeing, animal seeing, and so you're not able to see as much. And the quality of food, of course, is nowhere near as good. The accommodation, being in a tent with some sleeping bags, obviously not as good. And then also, if you're going up to go to the bathroom at night, you have to go to the outhouse, and there's animals around and stuff. And I only recommend that for the super, super budget traveler. If there's no other way to do this, and you're like really watching every $100, then yeah, like otherwise I would really, really recommend, especially if this is like a bucket list thing and you're only going to do it once, to just spend a little bit more money and get even an expensive tented lodge in the park.
Amazing advice. I had not thought of any of that. And these are the things that you don't know if you've never been before, So it's just so great to have you here sharing this. The one question we didn't ask is the best time of year to go.
Oh yeah, that's important. So for Tanzania, Kenya too, there's a monsoon season and a non-monsoon season. So mid-March through mid-May is rainy. So people still come. Prices are lower, but it's not going to necessarily rain all day, but definitely a lot more rain than usual. And then the rest of the year is fine. The rest of the year you can come anytime. There's what they call like a little rainy season in November, but like we're talking like an hour or two of rain a day. Again, prices are lower, but nowhere near the rain that you have in March or April. So I always recommend November if you want less people and a little bit lower prices. November 1st through December 15th, so before the holidays begin. And other than that, the summertime is a little bit busier, a little bit higher prices because you've got kids off from school and families visiting, off from school in the Northern Hemisphere at least. And then you've got February where the wildebeest give birth together. And so you're able to go there and see all these baby wildebeest, and it tracks the predators. And so a lot of animals are kind of all together in the center or the south of the Serengeti, and that makes for a pretty cool experience. But no matter when you come, it'll be awesome. You're going to see a lot of animals. You don't need like binoculars. We've got binoculars for you to use, but like you don't need them because there's animals everywhere and they're close, and it's really cool experience. I've been on safaris, or like quote unquote safaris, like all over the world. Outside of Africa as well. And, it's like, you're like, oh, look at that thing. Like, oh, you just missed it. Or like, oh, you look at the binoculars. You can kind of see it. Can you make it out? It's nothing like that. Some people come over and they're like, oh yeah, like maybe we'll like catch a glimpse of this or a glimpse of this. Like, no, like it's the point where, a few days in, you're like, oh, like we can just skip like the elephants and the lions. We've seen enough of those. Like, let's like hold out for some leopards or something, So you will not, like, no matter when you come, you will not, be like wishing there are more animals, or there won't be like a lack of animals no matter when you come, even in rainy season.
Yeah. Thanks for all that, Scott. And I think it was nice that you broke it down in terms of cost per day too. That's super helpful, and being able to break it down in a way where people could actually take like a Monday through Friday and do it. And obviously you can extend many days, but then if you're paying per day, you have to consider all of those costs. So
yeah, and if you could do it less than 8 days too. Some people don't even have that much time, and we can work with you on that. But we have to cut things out. We have to cut things out and or do things quicker, and may just be a little bit less of a leisurely experience.
Right, to make it worthwhile. It's kind of like 8 days a minimum.
Yeah, that's like our average trip is 8 days, and we can do it in less. We'll work with you, but I recommend that as like a starting point.
Cool. You want to give everybody the links so people can find you?
So we're just at Pamoja Safaris on all the social media. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pamoja. So that's Pamoja. It means together. And pamojasafaris.com. So Pamoja safaris.com is the website. And that's how you can get in touch with us. And if you mention that you heard it here, just let me know, and we'll give you a little special discount on your trip.
I wanted to ask you just like one or two more things before I let you go. Do you have something like you wish people told you when you started out? It could be related to travel or entrepreneurship or anything like that we discussed today.
I'm trying to think of something that's not so trite. Like do what makes you happy, or follow your dreams. No, I would say don't be don't be afraid to take risks. That sounds kind of trite too. But I don't know. I guess everyone has different challenges. Going into trying new things or following their dreams and whatnot. And don't be afraid to take that step, and also don't be afraid to admit that like this isn't working for you after you gave it a good shot. And pivot and do something else, because there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. We didn't even get into like the Mongol rally and some of the other things.
or Japan.
Or Japan. Yeah, we're going to have to do this again.
Always do part 2.
Yes, we're going to have to.
A lot of stories from that.
I wanted to kind of acknowledge something I saw on your About page, and I'll just read it. It said, the goal to create successful businesses, to have a meaningful, happy life, and to create lasting, positive change in the world through whatever opportunities and resources I'm presented with, is something that you wrote on your webpage. And I mean, you can tell me how you feel, but I feel like you're living that truth.
Yeah. I always try to, because those things make me happy. And also, just to go beyond myself, to also, like I said in that sentence, to give back whenever possible. Like I said, maybe in part 2, I'll mention those charity endeavors, those like long distance rally adventures that I had. My time with Rotary International, now coming up on 15 years being a member of that, and just all the different opportunities I've had to help out. I'm also part of a clean water education charity where I'm on the board of, where you teach people how to create long-lasting community-led water and sanitation projects in developing countries, stuff like that. Yeah, we didn't even get into any of that, but unfortunately, unlike some of the podcasts, we can't pull a Joe Rogan 4-hour podcast this time around, but we definitely do a part 2 next time.
All right, yeah. I mean, I know you're on a trip with your dad now, so we're gonna respect your time and let you go. I really appreciate all of the just wonderful information you gave us today and shared, and appreciate that I get to know you and have you in my friend circle, which is super cool. I feel super lucky. So I just hope we can continue to stay in touch, and glad we finally got to have you on here to do this. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, good times, man. Thank you again for having me. And we'll do a part 2. And we also got to do the that trip, the group safari trip, Zero to Travel trip.
Let us know. Take care.
All right.
There you have it. Thank you so much to Scott Brills, a lovely human being. Like I said, I've had the pleasure of meeting him a couple times in person, and the dude's the real deal. I mean, he cares. He lives the life, and I just am lucky to have him as a part of my circle here. So I want to thank him for stopping by, sharing his wisdom so transparently, and giving us some good food for thought when it comes to African safaris. How do you feel coming out of this show? Are you getting excited to go on a safari? Maybe your first one or your next one? Have you had safari experiences? Do you have advice to share? Do you have anything else that you'd like to share? You can always hit me up. jason@zerototravel.com is my email. Drop me a line, or you can leave me a voicemail really easily by just clicking the link in each and every show notes. It's always a pleasure to hear from listeners and make this a two-way conversation. In fact, I just got a guest recommendation from a listener, Donna in Australia. So I wanted to just say thanks to her for that. It is super helpful to find some new guests that you want to have on. This is a community-powered show. I do this show each and every week for the last 8 years for you. So whatever communication or feedback you can give me, that allows me to keep making the show that you want to hear. So please don't be shy and get in touch. I'm excited to be meeting a listener actually this week downtown in Oslo. We might even record a podcast about that. We'll have to see. So a lot of exciting things happening. I hope you had a wonderful summer. At the time of this recording, we're finishing up the summer and getting ready for the fall season. Not sure where your travels or your life is taking you, but I have a nice quote to leave you with here that is a good reminder for all of us to just live by. And let's just try to live by this today. Before I get into that, I talked about my bonus Big Five experience. Now, the Big Five is the catchphrase used for the big 5 animals in Africa. When you go on safari in Africa, people talk about seeing the Big Five, and the Big Five are referring to the African elephant, the lion, the leopard, the Cape buffalo, and rhinoceros. All incredible animals to see. And you know where you can see them? At the zoo. I told you it was a simple hack. I told you you've probably done it before. But check out a different zoo somewhere. If you haven't been to the zoo for a while, or go back to your local zoo. I have had the interesting fortune of seeing a lot of zoos in America when I was traveling around doing one promotional tour. I used to work in the event industry. We did an event at different zoos. So I flew to different zoos all over the States. And so I got to see a lot of zoos. And recently on my trip to the States, I went to the Naples Zoo in Florida. That was one of the best zoos I've ever been to. Shout out to the Naples Zoo. And I call this experience a bonus Big Five because it wasn't with one of the Big Five animals, but it was with a giraffe. And there's a part of the zoo where you can look at the giraffes and you can feed them pieces of lettuce, and you give them some money and they give you a little thing of lettuce, and then you can hold it out and the giraffe comes over and it sticks out its giant tongue and takes the lettuce right out of your hand, and you're looking into its beautiful eyes. You know, giraffes have those gorgeous eyelashes. They've got these peaceful looking, kind eyes with the big eyelashes and those long tongues. And it was so cool to be that close to a giraffe. And yeah, we had a great trip back to the States and did a lot of different things, but the giraffe experience sticks with me. I really enjoyed being that close, face to face with a giraffe. And I was holding my kids up, so they were the ones that actually fed the giraffe, but I was right there with them, and it was, kind of held it with them and helped them. And zoos are great places. I mean, just seeing these animals anywhere, even if you aren't in the position to go on safari right now, just to go to a zoo and just be present with some of these animals. I went to another zoo recently when I got back to Norway at the Dyreparken, it's called. And I have a guest coming up recently who's a friend of mine. And it's funny because she mentioned taking a day for herself and just going to the zoo by herself and how nice it was. So maybe that's today's challenge. It's an easy one. Go to the zoo and have some fun. There you go. Now, here's this quote. Nice reminder to leave you with today. This is from Kamal Ravikant, who said, "The most transformative experience has been the simple act of loving myself." Ooh. When we think about transformative travel experiences like safaris and some of the things that we've experienced ourselves in our own lives through travel or otherwise. And I thought this was a nice reminder that the most transformative experience has been the simple act of loving myself. That quote by Kamal Ravikant. So you can take that one to heart today if you'd like, and give yourself some love today. Smile. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. Peace and love.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.